The Man in the Sinking House. I'm about 16 years old and still in school, and living at home with my parents. I live in Ireland and it's winter, so it gets dark early. At night, me and my friends would amuse ourselves by running through the gardens of our houses in our estate. It's a pretty big estate with many houses, so there is plenty of ground to cover. We're not vandals or out to scare people. It's all about the stealth of getting through it unseen. But if the odd chase from a disgruntled homeowner occurs, so be it. Our housing estate is on a hill, and as we come to the peak of the hill, we notice a house with all the lights off. It looks like some of the curtains have been removed, so we guess that the family has moved out and the house is for sale. Used to play football during the day with the English kid who lived there. He was cool. So, after we learned one side of the house was sinking and the renting family was put up in another home, soon builders started working on the side of the house that's sinking. They drill and add support, but they are losing this battle, and the house remains abandoned. We naturally use the house for fun. We hang out there at night, smoking and drinking and telling ghost stories. There is still some furniture left behind, such as a kitchen table and chairs and bed frames. We usually let ourselves in through a second-story bathroom window, and we have to go through a couple of the surrounding houses' rear gardens to get to the rear window, because the streetlights will alert people if we enter through the front of the property. It's risky but reliable, as the local council have the house locked up. One night, we noticed a light in the house before we planned to enter. It looks more like a candlelight rather than that from a bulb. We didn't enter through the window, but walked to the front of the property and noticed a beat-up car in the driveway. We figure someone has moved in, or the council are onto us, and have paid some guy to check up on the place, but neither story checked out. The house is still sinking and vacant during the day, and our buddy's father works and the council says nobody has been asked to look after the place. We get brave again and start entering the house, and the odd time we notice the beat-up car in the drive and do not enter. One night, we enter through the rear window. It's just me and my buddy. We hang out upstairs and shoot the breeze. We get bored and hungry after a while, and decide to go to the local chipper for some grub. We exit through the rear upstairs bathroom window and onto the first floor roof. We jump onto the shed, and then into the garden and make our way to the chipper. We purchase food and drink and consume them on the short walk back to our estate. We enter the house through the rear garden and second floor window, and return to the large upstairs bedroom we were shooting the breeze in earlier. There are some chairs and stuff we can chill on. As I sit down, I look up at my friend, and he stood in the middle of the room completely frozen with a look of fear on his eyes. I can tell by the look of fear on his face he's not dicking around, and then it hits me. All the furniture in the room is arranged differently than it was earlier. I mouth the words, "fuck," silently to my friend. He remains frozen. I silently edge towards the window and look out onto the front driveway. The beat-up car is there. That man is in the house with us. We stay very quiet. Fear is roaring through my veins. The house is dark and silent, but there is a third person here with us. I look to my friend and direct my head and the wardrobe. I am giving him a signal to hide. He edges silently towards the wardrobe and gets in. I slid under the bed. My pulse rate is jacked, and I listen carefully for any noise in the house. I hear nothing. I whisper to my friend, "Let's get the hell out of here." My friend replies, "Okay." And right then it happens. Just as he finishes talking, we hear loud noise. Someone opens the door downstairs and starts running through the house fast and loud. This person is now running up the stairs. He's making weird grunting noises, like he's angry and in pain from his movements. He explodes into the rooms upstairs, grunting, incoherently shouting a loud mix of mumbled broken English and swear words. He is angry and violent. Furniture is picked up and thrown. Then he stops and quietly returns downstairs. He is panting. He is out of breath from his actions, and from what I can tell, utterly insane. I am still under the bed, frozen and scared, trying to make sense of this all. A nuclear war of panic is raging in my head. I am utterly terrified and wishing I was at home, but too scared to move. All I can think about is, why didn't I listen to my mother and stay out of trouble? I wish I was at home with her right now. I will never leave my house again if I make it through this. More time passes, cloaked under a shroud of pure terror. The silence from downstairs is the worst part. It's like he's waiting for any noise again before he pounces. Eventually, too much time passed, and I needed to speak to my friend again. "We can't stay here," I whispered to him. "Are you still with me? What the fuck is this?" My voice is fragile and trembling from the wave of unforeseen emotions I am going through. Tonight was supposed to be fun. How the hell did I end up in this situation? My friend didn't reply. I'm wondering if he is still there, or was he grabbed? Surely not. I would have heard him scream. He dare not speak in fear of angering the wild brute that lurks downstairs. That's it. He is still in the wardrobe and too afraid to speak. Yes, that must be it. He has stood there in darkness, feeling as shocked and terrified as I am. Finally, he speaks. "We must get the fuck out of here." A wave of relief hits me upon hearing his voice. For a fleeting moment, I felt less alone. But then the fear sets in once again. "On 3, we go, agreed." My friend replies, "Yes. 1, 2. And then we hear a grunt and a stir of movement from down below. Then I hear the sound of wardrobe doors crash open and running. That cunt. My friend has bolted without me. I make my move. I don't so much slide out from under the bed, but throw it off of me and start running. The man downstairs has also started to run. He is grunting and running and opening doors. He is running for the stairs. He is coming our way. The bathroom we used to enter and exit onto the roof is the first doorway at the top of the stairs. I am running along the upstairs landing. I see my friend ahead of me enter the bathroom. I can hear the man downstairs grunting and running. He is close to the bottom of the stairs. All this is happening in some weird slow motion blur. In a strange way, it's like I feel high, but high from fear. I just pray that my friend gets through that window and onto the roof quickly so I can make my escape. I'm about to reach the doorway entrance to the bathroom. It's right on top of the stairs. I can hear the grunting and running of the beast. He is already on the stairs and coming right for me. It's going to be close. As I pass the top of the stairs and enter the bathroom, I glance down the stairs briefly. It's dark. All I can see is a silhouette. He is huge. Arms are flailing everywhere. He's wearing a long trench coat. I smell mold. He is out of control, angry, grunting, and running right at me. I enter the bathroom and make it to the window. My friend is in the window frame. He has not made it out yet. Fucking move, I scream. I hear the beast. He is at the top of the stairs. He has one hand on the bathroom door frame to help him round the corner. I have movements left. My friend is out, but in his rush, he lets the window swing back at me. In my panic, I put all of my weight on it as I scramble out. The window comes off its hinges, and I fall out onto the first floor roof holding the window. I hear grunting very close to me. I felt the breeze of air from my hand trying to grab at me, coming very close but failing. I drop the window and jump to the garden. We make our escape through the gardens and back to my friend's house. We sit in his room catching our breath and just looking at each other. We never return to the house, and either does the beat-up car. I'm glad I wasn't there when they showed up. Location: 45 minutes north of Boston, Massachusetts. Gender: female. Current age: 25. 2 years ago, I was squatting in the attic of an old abandoned house. The house was full of furniture and stuff, and it was totally trashed and very dirty. I organized the attic and made a nest for myself of one half of it. My nook was fairly hidden behind boxes and things, and I designed a barricade for the door that only a small female such as myself could pass through easily. I didn't use that spot constantly, just when I was in the area. There was one time I showed up there at like 2 a.m. after I hadn't been there for a while. I intended to go up to my nest and get some sleep, but my intuition or whatever told me not to go inside. I really wanted to go up to my spot, but the closer I got to the house, the more fear I felt. I decided to just listen to my gut and sleep in the cemetery instead. I stayed away for a few days. But then one afternoon, I just felt like hanging out there. I didn't have anywhere else to be at the time, and I just wanted some quiet time indoors. I thought maybe I'd take a nap or read a book or something. I walked up to the house. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I didn't feel any fear or anything like that. So I went in through the back as usual. Everything seemed normal until I got upstairs. Someone had obviously been there. The upstairs was even more trashed than usual. Furniture had been flipped around, shit had been tossed all over. There was a bedroom on the second floor. A full-length mirror used to hang on the wall. It was like someone had punched the mirror. It was on the floor. It was damaged at the place where it looked like it had been punched, but it was mostly intact. I think that's probably where the blood came from. They must have punched it and hurt their hand. There was what looked like semen on the mirror, and written in marker the words, "This was for you, bitch." There was blood on the mirror, and the words, "Fuck you, bitch," and "cunt," written on the wall with blood. A bunch of other similar words and curses were written on the wall in marker. The marker was on the floor. Holy shit, right? I froze. What if they were still in the house? I was pretty certain they weren't, though. Maybe I should have left right away. But I wanted to check my nest first and grab a few things before I never ever went back. I went up to the attic, and my barricade was totally wrecked. I guess it wasn't so strong after all. It probably would have brought me enough time to escape out the window onto the roof below, where I could have jumped to the ground. I'd rehearsed the escape route in my mind many times. Anyways, my nest was entirely ruined. It seemed like somebody had been looking for me and got really fucking pissed off when I wasn't there. The room reeked of urine. I think they pissed on my sleep spots. There was more semen smeared on the wall. I never went back there again. His name was ZOMBIEWOLF. Just a preface. This is 100% true. My husband didn't really believe me until my mother recounted the story to him. I realize how crazy this sounds thinking back on it. So, if you haven't read my previous story, my stepfather was a crackhead. That means he dealt with some pretty shady people. My mother's stepfather and I lived on the south side of Chicago, at the time in an abandoned house. My stepfather was a serious user, and I think my mom was in such denial that she stayed with him. I guess she really wanted to make her first marriage work, at all costs. He drained my mother's money. Eventually this got us evicted from our original apartment, because my mother couldn't pay anything. The abandoned house was my stepfather's parents' coach house. They both have passed, and their home had long since went downhill. The neighborhood and home was very run down. It didn't have a roof, really. Large pieces were missing. I recall during the fall, my stepfather would make a bonfire for us to sit around to try to keep warm. I was 10 years old at the time, and just so you know, I am a girl. My mother would try to make it fun, so I wouldn't notice the situation we were in. I wasn't stupid. I did enjoy it as a kid in a way. It was what I imagined camping would be like for an extended time. I sat on one side of the bonfire, and my mother and stepfather sat on the other side. It was pretty dark, probably around 9 p.m. I would guess. The yard was huge, and there was a large tree off to the right, where I was sitting and behind my parents. I was pretty observant for my age, and I could have sworn I saw something in the tree. I passed it off as a squirrel or something, but again, I saw slight movement, and this time I know I saw a body. I whispered to my parents someone was in the tree. My mom said it was imagination. My stepfather said, "Oh, don't worry, that's just ZOMBIEWOLF," as if he was used to someone hiding in the trees watching him. He called it the ZOMBIEWOLF, and he climbed down and walked over to us. He was a tall, lanky black guy with very scary large eyes. His eyes and the fact that he was in a tree watching us is what weirded me out a lot. My stepfather introduced him as his childhood buddy and invited him to sit with us. My mom came and sat next to me, and ZOMBIEWOLF sat next to my stepfather. My mom eventually asked why was his name ZOMBIEWOLF. He said with a straight face, I will never die. And I always kill my prey. There was silence for quite a while. When my stepfather laughed the awkwardness away, Zombie Wolf seemed utterly unfazed by the whole situation, as if he just told the most innocent story. This goes on for a bit, when Zombie Wolf tells my stepfather he has something he wants him to hold on for him. They walk into the house, and finally come out together. Zombie Wolf walks out into the darkness, and doesn't come back. My stepfather asks my mother to come in, just her. She clearly says no, given the crazy man who may or may not be watching me. My stepfather assures her that he wouldn't harm me. She gives in and goes inside, telling me to scream if I need help. I'm totally clueless and eager to be let in on the secret. No luck. A few days later, my mother and I walk back to the house from my school. We go inside and there's white powder all over the small table. Underneath the small mound was what looked like a duct-taped bag of sugar. My stepfather was nowhere to be found, of course. I asked my mom, what was this powder? She kept me back from it. Well, she explained, it was drugs, she said. I have no idea what specifically. She said Zombie Wolf told my stepfather to hold it for him till the heat died down, since he stole it and they were looking for him. My mom goes on saying how my stepfather looked like a kid in a candy store when he saw it. She was certain he opened it, had his fill, and ran off. She started crying after her wave of anger passed. She told me that she loved me, and that no matter what, she will protect me. At the time, I'm terribly confused as to what in the world is happening. I start crying with her. She holds me for a few minutes when we hear a voice call her name from the now open door. I didn't hear it open. She didn't look back, but instead, she stooped down and told me to run as fast as I can and to not look back or stop. I could see Zombie Wolf behind her standing at the door. I was terrified out of my mind. I didn't want to leave her and I hugged her. She pushed me off and told me to run. I did. I ran past Zombie Wolf and I ran far, seeing my mom in her face, and once she told me to do, I knew without a doubt I'd never see my mom again. There was an extremely large field of weeds behind that house. I ran and ran until all my emotions boiled up and I couldn't. I fell down and cried quietly. I stayed there for a long time, until I remember my stepfather introduced us to a nice lady a ways away. I stood and ran, hoping I could remember where she lived. I didn't know how long I was running, but it was near sunset by then. I finally made it there, and to my disbelief, my mother was there, and so were the police. She had called them from the nice lady's house and said I went missing. Again, I was confused, but I didn't care because my mom wasn't gone. She later told me that Zombie Wolf calmly told her he would find and kill me in front of my mother, and then kill my mother if she didn't tell him where my stepfather was. He thought she was protecting him. She told him she had no clue where my stepfather was, but if he laid a finger on me, she would gladly go to prison for killing him. They had to stare down for a long time. Then he gathered up as much of the powder he could and left. She immediately bolted out the door and to the nice lady, since we didn't have a phone at the time. She was praying that I was there. If I wasn't, she'd hoped I had enough of a lead on Zombie Wolf and she'll find me. She said any place was better than there with him. She called the police to help find me. She said she didn't tell them what happened for fear of going to jail and being separated from me or worse. They escorted us back to the house, and my mom shoved as much of our things as she possibly could in a garbage bag, and we left. That was the last time I saw that place. Her denial and everything else went out the window about her husband. Her view is if he would let us, particularly me, die for his mistakes, there is, and never will be, forgiveness for that. Where are your condoms? I don't know how to start this. I'm typing this on my phone, so I apologize for any errors. I'm 15 years old, soon to be 16, so this took place a little under 3 years ago. I'm a female, about 4'11", and I've never been the skinniest girl, which is why I don't understand how this happened to me. I'm sorry. This might get a little long. When I turned 13, I didn't get rebellious. I was a friggin' cunt. I started smoking pot and making life hard for my mom, which is oddly the thing I regret the most. Anyways, there was one instance when I'd been getting high literally all day with my partner in crime. I'll call her Kimmy, and a 22-year-old man who was on strict house arrest for raping a minor. At about 9 p.m., a friend of ours, I'll call him Alan, calling about having a little party. We left immediately, only to find Alan, 17 at the time, his cousin Aiden, 18 at the time, and 2 other cousins whose names I don't know, 8 and 12 at the time. A friggin' 8-year-old brought us $100 of weed and vodka. We got to Alan's house, smoked half the weed, then kicked the babies out. Kimmy and I were the ones to talk, right? We rolled the rest of the pot into 2 blunts and whipped out the vodka. I never drank before and had actually refused to, until I took a drink and decided to chug the whole bottle. I was trashed. It was once the bottle was empty I came up with a great idea to play spin the bottle. I kept spinning Alan, then he kept spinning me, so it was non-stop Kaylee and Adam make-out time. At one point, Aiden growled out a drunken "fuck this," and proceeded to grab me by my hair and stick his tongue down my throat. Whatever, I was drunk, he was hot, no big deal. A while later, we snuck out and decided to party at the abandoned house next door. While there, Alan and Kimmy smoked the blunts, and Aiden decided it would be a good idea to pick me up, throw me on a sticky glass table, and try to have sex with me. We got about as far as him bruising my hips trying to grind on me before Alan broke us up and we went back to his house. When we got there, we turned off the lights and got in bed. This next part gets a little hard for me to type, but the few friends I've told honestly don't understand what the big deal was. So I apologize if this was a huge disappointment, but it happened and here it goes. Halfway through the night, Kimmy and Alan had started having sex, which I guess had made Aiden want to have sex, but I didn't. You bet my sweet ass I tried my best to nope the right fuck out of there. I barely had my first kiss. I couldn't do it. After he tried to coax me into it, he whipped his penis out, grabbed my hand, and started to force me into giving him a hand job. It took me 10 minutes to yank my hand away and turn my back to him. Yep, that helped. He scooted closer and wrapped his arm around my waist. The other went straight down my pants from underneath me. I freaked out, but only enough to whine out a breath. Stop! He just bit down on my neck and put his fingers inside of me. Before I could help it, I moaned in pain, and he took it as harder, and that's what he did. I kept saying, "Stop, I don't want to, and stop, it hurts, please." He told me I liked it, to stop lying, and he kept doing it. I started trying to pull his hand away, but he used his other arm to pin my hands against my back. Then he pushed his body against them, and I could not get away. Then I started crying. I cried for Kimmy, who was still away, completely oblivious to what was happening. That's when he covered my mouth and started to grind on me again. Here I am being molested, and neither of the 2 people in the room are doing anything. That's when he says, "Hey, Alan, where are your condoms?" That's when Alan looked over and saw what was happening. He pushed Kimmy away and dragged me in between him and her, safely away from Aiden. Alan held me until I stopped crying and fell asleep. The next morning, I had to crawl out of Alan's basement window and walk home with Kimmy. She was the first person I told. I had to walk past my mom and pretend I didn't have bite marks all over my body, or that I didn't feel like a dirty, ruined piece of shit. Aiden moved to Washington after I got around the neighborhood what had happened. Not my fault, trust me. I wanted it to be a secret, and I haven't seen him since. My mom still doesn't know. I still panic when people hold my arms down. I'm still ashamed. And I know that it was partly my fault. So that's my story. Sorry if it was long, or if it was disappointing.